Our next guest is Louise Thomas, who's CEO at AirAware Labs. Louise left her government role about 18 months ago to pursue her passion for reducing the impact of air pollution. She established AirAware Labs with co-founder Dr. Will Hicks in January last year, and they recently launched their AirTrack mobile app, giving people personalized insights into their air pollution data. Their products are used across the globe, and their aim is to help hundreds of thousands of people to reduce their exposure to pollution and to protect their health. Louise, the next 15 minutes is yours.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Mark, and great to be part of a panel looking at lots of different aspects of air pollution, picking up where Mike left off. So as Mark said, we are AirAware Labs. And our mission is to personalise air quality data for everyone, and I will go into that in a bit more depth. But first of all, just to reiterate some of the top level reasons why we're doing this, further to the last speaker. So 8 million deaths worldwide, approximately 40,000 within the UK, around about $8 trillion lost to the global economy as a result of air pollution. And this makes air pollution the biggest environmental threat to our health, very, very clearly up at the top. But actually, in slight contrast to the last speaker, I think it's no longer the fourth overall impact on health. There's been recent studies saying it is in fact the second biggest impact on health globally, with only high blood pressure sitting above it. So the reasons for doing this are hopefully speak for themselves, and hopefully picking up on Mike Berners-Lee's topic earlier. How does all of this link to climate change? Well, often the solutions to both climate change and air pollution are the same, and ultimately a lot of it is about reducing or hopefully eliminating the burning of fossil fuels. But in some ways, the policy changes that we need to see are slightly different. So we do still see quite a big impact on air pollution from electric vehicles, so a concern about the growth in large electric vehicles that have major air pollution impacts, even if they're not coming through an exhaust pipe. So lots of similarities, but also some additional things to think about when you're considering air pollution. And I think it's the classic global to local problem, where it's clearly a global health crisis, but the effects are felt very locally, and they're also felt differentially across populations. So we see a lot of impact on inequality, with the most marginalised communities being affected the most. So next slide. So I think just to ram home the point, this is a health issue. I made a slightly cheeky point to the Ipsos talk earlier. If you ask people about the environmental impact, they might say one thing, but why not ask them about the health impact of their travel choices as well? So for us, air pollution is very squarely a health issue. A few stats there on the global burden of it. And as we've just heard, it's not just respiratory health, but cardiovascular, brain health, mental health, fertility, even skin health, allergies. Almost everything you can think of has increased likelihood as a result of exposure to air pollution. And even as far as athletic performance being impacted over the short term as well. And while we've looked a lot in the past at gases such as nitrogen dioxide, it's now seen that particulate matter is probably the biggest threat to health amongst all of the pollutants that get tracked. And that particulate matter can include all sorts of things, but it would also include the kind of microplastics that Mike Berners-Lee was speaking about earlier. So next slide, please. So with all of that in mind, it still surprises us a bit at Airware Labs that so many things get tracked at a personal level to help people lead healthier lives, and yet air pollution does not typically get tracked. So something as simple as the air that you breathe in does not tend to be tracked to any extent like other health data. And this is really the problem that we are aiming to solve within Airware Labs. We're trying to make the often very generic information that you get on air pollution much more personalised to help people understand the impact on their health and what they can do about it. So next slide, please. So it's not just an individual health issue, of course. It's also a productivity challenge for employers. So we've got a few stats there. Globally, 1.2 billion lost work days. And as I mentioned before, the cost to the global economy, a lot of which is as a result of productivity losses and increased healthcare costs for workers. And yet, just to bring a positive note, there's been a very recent report out from the University of Bath showing that the improvements within London in reducing air pollution have actually led to an 18% reduction in sick days. So we can see some of this be reversed and tackled effectively. So next slide, please. So this is where it would be great to get everybody's views on the poll. So it'd be great to hear from you, whether you're employee or employer, but thinking about employers that you are familiar with, are they considering the impacts of air pollution more than necessary to about the right extent, or not enough as they should be? So I think we leave that one running and people can consider that. Here we go, we're getting some responses, excellent. Okay, fairly clear so far. I will hold on. Should we hold on just a second and see what more comes through? Great. Okay. Well, if anybody would like to hit the more than necessary, just to take it off 0%. But yeah, very clearly a response from the group there that employers are not considering this to the extent that perhaps it deserves. So back to Airware Labs. So we've been working with Mobility Ways since last summer. And this really reflects that Mobility Ways, I think, recognise the two sides of the coin that zero carbon commuting and exposure to air pollution bring to the table, and that they're very much a combined force that needs to be tackled. So for us, we would argue that perhaps picking up on some of the concerns raised earlier today, that people may be turning away in places from addressing the climate crisis, or that they feel there's nothing that can be done. We would argue that addressing air pollution and the impacts, very real and direct and relevant impacts on people's health, is a very good way into those conversations, and brings a dimension to engaging employees or customers on environmental issues by making them real. So to get into the nuts and bolts of some of this, so active travel, like we've heard, has very, very many benefits. But one thing that people maybe are concerned about as they think about, do I want to cycle to work or perhaps walk to work, is, well, what about all of those fumes that I'm breathing in from the other cars or the buses or other road users? And actually, one thing that people tend to not understand well is that while, yes, you are subject to some of those fumes, and it would be much better if they were a lot lower, you are almost certainly better off being out in the open air and not confined within a car where you're breathing in a sort of trapped pollution. Opening the windows is probably even worse for you within a car. So a lot of people don't tend to know that. The figures are not very precise, but there are some studies showing that that you're subject to about 3 times as much pollution within a car as directly outside of a car. But then, of course, additional things like segregated cycle lanes help even more, and so on. So we would argue that by helping address some of these concerns, by that awareness raising, but also giving the opportunity for people to find low pollution routes to work, will help to address some of the concerns about active travel and make it even healthier and more pleasant than it is, or than people might think it is at present. So on to the next slide, please. So just at a more macro level, across the EU, CSRD reporting is covering both climate change and air pollution together. So very much looking at the two sides of the coin is sensible. As I've said, the direct health impact can be brought out, which may help businesses make their environmental and sustainability initiatives a bit more real to employees and get more employee engagement, and particularly through things like cycle to work schemes help to support those. And as per people have supported my hypothesis that employers aren't doing enough on this at the moment, so they can therefore be at the forefront. They can be very much in the vanguard if starting to look at air pollution more actively would be seen as very much in the vanguard of sustainability and employee well-being. So next slide, please. So just quickly, nearly out of time, but just to raise some of the stuff that we've been doing with World Economic Forum recently. So they have a Clean Air Alliance of major corporates who've committed to reducing their impact on air pollution. And they invited us to work with them to raise awareness of some of the innovations around air pollution and bring different dimensions to the story. So where those companies might have been looking particularly at emissions data, we can help them also to understand exposure for their staff as a result of air pollution. So we've done 3 blogs now. Please check them out, give us your comments, and have a further one upcoming soon, we hope, on air quality in business decisions that's the World Economic Forum has committed to doing with us. So I think one more poll on the next slide. So this is, you can choose more than one, hopefully, in the way this one is set up. Different ways that you could start to look at air pollution in your jobs. So could you look at exposure data alongside low carbon commuting data? Could you help employees with recommendations for clean air routes for their commutes? And could you offer personalised health impacts from air pollution, offer the insights on that alongside other employee benefits that support health? So I will pause a moment. Ah, yes, it is doing multiples. Good. Okay. So all fairly positive answers there. And yeah, ever so slightly in the lead, recommendations for clean air routes. So that is good. We will deliver. So last and final slide, I think. So this is us. If you want to contact us, the QR code goes to our website, but please also speak to us and Mobility Ways together if you're interested in seeing how air pollution and zero carbon commuting can be brought together in that virtuous circle. Thank you very much.
Louise, thank you. That was superb.